The sterling silver tray in my mother-in-law's hands caught the chandelier's glow, gleaming like a trophy as she circled the dining table with practiced grace. One by one, she placed 6 sizzling filet mignons before each relative seated in their polished mahogany chairs. The scent filled the room, rich and indulgent. But none of them were meant for me. No plate came my way. The dining room suddenly felt less like a place for family meals and more like a courtroom, with me seated in the defendant's box awaiting judgment. When my husband's aunt finally broke the silence, asking why I had been excluded, Olivia's smile didn't even waver. Her voice was smooth, almost cheerful as she announced, "I only ordered for family." Time slowed, stretched thin and fragile, like pulled taffy ready to snap. The words hovered in the air, suspended between shock and silence, every syllable cutting deeper the longer they lingered. My fingertips turned icy where they brushed the edge of the linen tablecloth, though my face burned. I felt every pair of eyes darting between Olivia and me, some curious, some uncomfortable, and a few lit with something disturbingly close to amusement. I turned toward my husband, searching for something, anything in his face. "Nicholas, am I family or not?" But he wouldn't meet my gaze. He focused on his plate instead, cutting into his perfect medium-rare steak with deliberate precision. His lips barely moved as he muttered, "Don't do this. Not here. My name is Rebecca. I'm 31, and I work as an accounting officer." This is the story of how I reclaimed my dignity after 7 years of slow erasure. Years of being treated like an unwelcome guest in my own marriage. The warning signs had been there all along. Bright crimson flags I naively mistook for banners of celebration. I met Nicholas at a Saturday book club through mutual friends. At the time, I was already working full-time, buried in ledgers and spreadsheets at a regional supermarket chain, while he was finishing his graduate degree in public administration. He'd look at me with what I thought was admiration. His eyes soft, his tone full of praise. "You're incredible," he'd say. "Working full-time while I just write policy memos makes me feel lazy." I mistook those words as genuine respect, not realizing they were the foundation for years of subtle condescension. When Nicholas landed a position as a budget analyst at the city clerk's office, we moved into a modest rental on the outskirts of town. That was when I first stepped into the world of his parents, Olivia and James. Olivia carried herself like royalty, her Chanel perfume clinging to her presence as tightly as the crown of judgment she wore. James shook my hand as though expecting change back in his palm. His sister Kimberly, 2 years older than Nicholas, lived like life was a permanent vacation, proudly boasting that she had never worked a day in her life. Olivia's first words to me, after a long assessing stare, were, "Oh, I thought you'd be taller." James followed with a question wrapped in pity. "So, Rebecca, you didn't go to college?" The word didn't drip with condescension, stinging sharper than the question itself. I didn't flinch, though. At 18, I had bills to pay and no choice but to work. I never regretted that decision, until I was forced to justify it over and over again under their scrutiny. For a time, Nicholas defended me. "She works harder than anyone I know," he'd tell them. "My parents can be a little much. Don't take it personally." And I didn't, at first. I bit my tongue when Olivia arrived with overpriced pastries, setting them in front of Nicholas alone. I smiled politely when she wrinkled her nose at my store-brand coffee. But the small slights multiplied, and Nicholas's defenses thinned until they vanished altogether. "She doesn't even manage investments," I overheard James whisper once, after examining my pay stub, the one Olivia had fished from our mailbox while pretending to bring in the mail. Kimberly's voice would follow, laced with smug pity. "I could never do all that grunt work. I don't know how you do it." I once found Olivia rifling through my drawers under the excuse of looking for a napkin. When she pulled out my bank ledger, she shook her head in disapproval. "So little savings and no portfolio," she muttered, before turning to Nicholas. "You should have married someone with a financial plan." Still I showed up. Holiday after holiday, birthday after birthday, I was there. I cooked, I cleaned, I poured drinks, I smiled. One Christmas, when everyone else unwrapped personalized gifts and heartfelt cards, I received a candle that had clearly been regifted. No one noticed. Not even Nicholas. By the 6th year of marriage, reality had settled in. I was the hired help who happened to share a last name with their son. And yet, I clung on, foolishly hoping that history might outweigh hostility, that love might rediscover its way through the ruins. We didn't have children, but we had years invested. That, I told myself, was worth holding on to. Then came the cabin trip last summer. A family getaway, Olivia had called it, urging me to pack. I drove with Nicholas to his parents' house, suitcase in tow, only to return from the restroom to find the car gone. They'd left without me. Nicholas's explanation later was calm, almost casual. Mom said it should be just family. But I'm your wife, I reminded him. Yeah, he said, but you're not blood. The words gutted me. Maybe he didn't realize the depth of the wound, or maybe he knew exactly what he was doing. By August, the annual family lunch arrived, with relatives flying in from across the country. My store had given us 3 days off for wellness reform, a rare gift. I should have spent it at the beach. Instead, Olivia called the night before with her signature command disguised as courtesy. You'll help with prep. Guests expect a certain standard. Nicholas insisted we go. We should maintain appearances, he said, while still unemployed and stringing me along to cover our bills. That standard meant I was up at dawn, chopping vegetables, dusting shelves, vacuuming, polishing wine glasses until my reflection shone in them. Nicholas and his parents sipped espresso on the patio while I scrubbed and ironed. Kimberly breezed in at noon, her only contribution a sharp reminder, don't forget the vegan option for Aunt Caroline. Then she disappeared again. By the time lunch began, exhaustion weighed on me like lead. My arms ached, my back throbbed, and I hadn't even had a cup of coffee. Guests arrived in cheerful waves, filling the house with warmth and laughter. I forced smiles, poured drinks, reheated sauces, ushered people to their seats. Nicholas offered no help. When I asked him quietly to carry out the roast, he muttered, "You're doing fine." Finally, when everyone was seated, I allowed myself to sit. That's when Olivia stood, her voice coated in sugar. "I have a surprise," she declared. "Just for family." From the kitchen, she returned with that gleaming silver tray, its surface bearing 7 perfectly cooked filet mignons. One by one, she served James, Kimberly, Nicholas, and 3 other relatives, placing each plate before them like a ritual of belonging. Then she lifted a glossy white box. For dessert, imported French tarts. Just for the family. The table buzzed with delight. Everyone except me. I had only my half-eaten roast chicken from the first course. The silence pressed down until Aunt Caroline, seated beside me, broke it with a frown. "Olivia, didn't you make one for Rebecca?" Olivia's eyes flicked to me as if I were gum clinging to the sole of her designer shoe. "I only ordered for family," she repeated lightly, unbothered. My ears rang. Heat surged up my chest into my face. I turned to Nicholas, desperate for his voice, his acknowledgement, something. "Nicholas," I said softly, "tell me, am I family or not?" He kept his gaze locked on his steak, chewing with exaggerated slowness, as if pretending my question was rhetorical. Aunt Caroline leaned forward, her brow creasing. "Nicholas, your wife just asked you something." At last, he set his fork down with an annoyed clatter. "Don't do this, Rebecca. Not here. Not in front of everyone." My hands trembled, but my voice didn't. "Oh, I think this is exactly the place. After 7 years, this is the moment." Olivia gave a sharp, dismissive laugh. "Honestly, Rebecca, making a scene over food? This is beneath you." "Food?" I echoed. "This isn't about steak or desserts. It's about 7 years of being treated like a tenant in your son's life. Like the outsider you never wanted." James scoffed. "No one ever said you weren't welcome." "No," I countered. "You didn't say it. You showed it. With every side eye, every backhanded comment. Every time you rifled through my private things, looking for proof I wasn't good enough. You made it clear I wasn't family material." Kimberly snorted. "You're being dramatic." I turned to her, my words cutting sharper than any knife. "You've never worked a day in your life. I've carried this marriage financially for nearly a year while your brother pretended to go to work every morning. So yes, I've earned the right to be dramatic." Nicholas's head snapped up, his face tight with panic. "Rebecca, shut up." "Or what?" I asked, my voice calm, deadly steady. "You'll lose your precious image? Hate to break it to you, Nicholas, but everyone here is about to find out. You haven't had a job since last fall." The room froze. Every eye turned to him. Olivia blinked rapidly, her lashes fluttering like wings caught in a storm. "What is she talking about?" she demanded, her voice sharp, her composure finally showing cracks. Nicholas stammered, his lips parting and closing, but no words seemed to form. I leaned forward, the weight of 7 years pressing into every syllable. "He was fired from the city clerk's office," I said evenly, "after a massive error in the tax forms. They sent out hundreds of incorrect invoices, some residents underbilled by thousands. Nicholas was responsible for the final review." "That's not true," Nicholas cut in quickly, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Even he looked unconvinced by his own denial. "Since then," I continued, my tone steady though my hands were trembling under the table, "I've paid every bill, every grocery trip. I've covered rent, utilities, car repairs." All the while he sat with his laptop, pretending to hunt for jobs, secretly applying for positions he was underqualified for, playing at responsibility while leaving the real weight to me. A heavy silence oozed across the table, spreading like oil slicking the surface of water. Aunt Caroline lowered her gaze to her plate, then looked up at Nicholas, her expression troubled. "Is this true?" she asked softly. Nicholas shot to his feet so abruptly his chair skidded back. "This is insane," he snapped. "You're trying to humiliate me." "No, Nicholas," I replied, rising just enough in my seat to meet his eyes. "You humiliated yourself when you sat there and let your mother deny me a plate at her table as if I were nothing more than the help." Olivia slammed her crystal glass onto the table, the sharp crack of impact reverberating through the polished wood. "You don't talk to my son like that." "And you," I said, my voice low but unyielding, "don't talk to me like I'm disposable." From my bag, I pulled out a thin manila folder and laid it in front of Nicholas with a soft, deliberate thud. His eyes flickered toward it, dread flickering across his face. "What's this?" he asked, though his expression told me he already knew. "Draft separation papers," I answered. "I've already spoken to an attorney." "I'm not waiting for your permission." The room froze again, the kind of silence that makes air feel heavy. Even Kimberly, mid-bite, set her fork down. "You're overreacting," James finally said, his voice laced with disdain. "Am I?" I turned on him, my words sharp as glass. "You think I didn't notice the way you sighed every time I entered a room? The way your eyes scanned my hands as if checking for dirt? You didn't need words. You made your judgment clear in every look." Kimberly cut in, her voice dripping venom. "You're just mad because you'll never fit in with us. You never had class, Rebecca." I smiled faintly, not in humor but in recognition of the truth I carried. "And yet I'm the only one here who knows how to pay a mortgage." Olivia surged from her chair, her composure unraveling. "You think this makes you superior? You're nothing more than a cashier's clerk." "Accounting officer," I corrected smoothly. "And I've just been promoted to regional finance coordinator. Unlike your son, I actually read documents before signing them." Nicholas shoved the folder back toward me, desperation flashing in his eyes. "You're not doing this," he said, his voice cracking. "Oh, I am. You're really going to throw away our marriage because of one lunch?" His voice rose, half plea, half accusation. "No," I said quietly, almost tenderly. "I'm leaving because I've spent 7 years treated like a stranger in my own life. Because you let them grind me down until I forgot I had options." He stared at me as if I were a stranger, his eyes hollow with disbelief. Perhaps I had become someone he no longer recognized. Or maybe I was finally showing him the woman I'd always been. I turned to Aunt Caroline, my voice softening. "I'm sorry you had to witness this." She placed her napkin gently on the table and met my gaze with kindness. "Don't apologize, dear. You've shown more grace than most would in your position." Then she shifted her eyes to Olivia, her voice sharpening. "And you? You should be ashamed. You humiliated your daughter-in-law in front of your entire family." "She's not my daughter-in-law anymore," Olivia spat, her tone venomous. I nodded, calm settling over me. "And you'll never have the chance again." Nicholas's voice dropped to a whisper, so soft I almost missed it. "You really mean it? You're leaving me?" I didn't answer. Instead, I stood, walked to the kitchen, retrieved my purse from the hook by the door, and returned to the dining room. "I'll be sending official papers this week," I said evenly. Olivia folded her arms, her chin lifted in defiance. Don't expect sympathy from anyone. Aunt Caroline stood, her expression resolute. Actually, Olivia, I think you'll find the family feels otherwise. Olivia blinked rapidly. What do you mean? I mean we're tired, Caroline said, her voice carrying across the room. Tired of the drama, the constant belittling, the cruelty wrapped in tradition. I won't be attending your Christmas brunch this year. You can't be serious, Olivia snapped, looking around for support. Caroline's eyes swept the table. Several cousins nodded silently, their faces grim. I am. I turned toward the doorway. Nicholas tried one last time, desperation lacing his words. Rebecca, don't do this, please. I paused at the threshold but didn't turn back. You had 7 years to treat me like family, I said. You chose silence. And then I walked out. The walk to my car stretched like eternity condensed into 10 seconds, the quietest 10 seconds of my life. No shouting, no footsteps chasing after me, no desperate apologies. Just the measured click of my heels on the driveway and the August heat rising like waves from the pavement. I didn't cry. I didn't even look back. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my driveway now, I had already texted my lawyer to move forward. The folder was real. The conversations with the attorney were real. I just hadn't expected to use them so soon. But I didn't need to wait anymore. The final straw hadn't been steak. It had been silence. Nicholas's silence. The week that followed blurred into paperwork, iced coffees, and late nights at my desk. I moved into the guest bedroom, creating distance, while Nicholas hovered in the living room, still clinging to the delusion that this was a fight, not a fracture. People divorce over cheating, not over lunch, he said bitterly. You're being theatrical. But something inside him knew. His job hunt pretense collapsed. He stopped leaving the house, stopped trying altogether. He sat in silence, shrinking into himself, while I pushed forward. I accepted the promotion offer from my company's main office, regional finance coordinator, a full salary increase, flexible work-from-home options. I'd be relocating in 3 months. I didn't tell Nicholas. Why should I? The only thing I did tell him was the court date. Mediation was set for September 9th, just 3 weeks after the lunch debacle. I filed for no-fault divorce, but beneath the legal language, fault ran deep. 3 days before the hearing, my phone buzzed. Aunt Caroline's name appeared. I wasn't surprised. Over the years we had exchanged contact information, and she had always carried a quiet kindness. I just wanted you to know, she said gently. You weren't the only one who saw it. What they did to you at that lunch, that was a reckoning. She told me word had spread quickly. Cousins and in-laws had left that day furious, disgusted. Some confronted Olivia directly, others simply walked out. Caroline had shared her thoughts with the extended family. You don't starve someone and call it hospitality. The ripple spread. Olivia and James were politely uninvited from 2 upcoming weddings. Kimberly, who once bragged she was always in demand, suddenly found herself without invitations, her phone silent. Reputation, it turned out, did not grant immunity. And Nicholas was unraveling. I came home one evening to find him slumped on the couch, a drink in his hand, his eyes glazed. This is what you wanted, right? He slurred. Burn it all down. No, I said, setting my bag aside. I just stopped pretending the ashes were flowers. The day of mediation, Nicholas wore a suit that pinched at the shoulders, his tie too tight. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I wore navy blue, kept my hair pinned back, and carried with me every receipt, every bank statement, every record of how I had kept us afloat while he floundered. My lawyer barely had to speak. The numbers told the story. At the end, Nicholas looked at me like he wanted to say something raw, something real. But all that came out was, I can't believe you're doing this to me. I stood. No. Nicholas. I can't believe you did this to me. When the divorce was finalized 3 months later, in December, I didn't celebrate with champagne or confetti. I went home, ordered Indian takeout, and slept 12 hours straight. The silence that wrapped around me felt different now. It wasn't suffocating. It was earned. Weeks passed. Olivia attempted damage control. A vague email landed in my inbox with empty phrases like I'm sorry if you were hurt and we've all said things we didn't mean. I didn't reply. I archived it. Moved on. The promotion took me 2 states away, into a bright apartment with a southern-facing balcony and a dishwasher that didn't rattle. My new co-workers welcomed me with plants and gift baskets. My new manager smiled and said, "We've heard nothing but great things about you." For the first time in years, I was seen for who I was, not who I wasn't. One late October evening, while packing boxes for the move, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Nicholas. His voice was quiet, fragile. "I just wanted to say I miss you. I think we got lost. I should have said something that day. Should have stood up." "Nicholas," I said slowly, "you had 7 years." "I know," he whispered. "I was scared." "Of who?" I asked. "Of my mother. Of everything." There was a long pause, a silence that said more than words ever could. "I've been thinking of coming to see you," he added. "To talk face to face." I looked out at the skyline, the lights of my new life blinking like a promise. "No need," I replied. Everything I needed to hear, I heard in that dining room. He didn't argue. The silence stretched. Before he could try again, I said, "I'm not angry anymore, Nicholas. I just don't belong to that life, and it doesn't belong to me. Our divorce is final. Let's leave it at that." He exhaled shakily. "So that's it. That's it." I hung up. I stood in the middle of my kitchen for a long while, listening. No shouting, no footsteps, no clipped remarks or tapping nails. Just me, my apartment, and a basil plant drooping in need of water. Some silences cut you open. And some at long last stitch you whole.